So, what happens when a US president decides to target a single private company with the full power of the entire federal government? Today, we're going to break down a pretty dramatic constitutional showdown that did just that.
You know, it's not every day that a federal judge pulls out a quote like this one from Shakespeare. It's this incredibly famous line, and it's a warning, really, about what happens when law and order start to break down. So the big question is, what on earth could a presidential order have said to make a judge use a line like that? Let's dive right into Executive Order 14230. Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is March 6, 2025. President Donald J. Trump signs an executive order that is, well, unlike anything in American history. See, this wasn't about some broad policy. It was laser focused on one very specific target, a private law firm.
This wasn't your typical regulation for a whole industry or anything like that. No, this was a direct order aimed squarely at one company, Perkins Coie. And that, right there, set the stage for a massive legal battle over just how much power a president really has. So, to really get what's going on here, we first have to look at the why. What reasons did the White House actually give for taking such an extreme and, frankly, personal action? The justification was all laid out right there in the order itself. I mean, wow. Dishonest and dangerous activity. That is some incredibly strong language. This wasn't framed as some simple disagreement over policy. The administration was painting a picture of this firm as a decades-long threat to the entire country. A huge part of the accusation was that the firm was actively trying to undermine American elections. The White House pointed to things like the firm's work for political opponents, like the Hillary Clinton campaign, and its involvement in lawsuits around election laws as proof of these supposedly anti-democratic actions.
But it wasn't just about politics. The order also took a direct shot at the firm's own internal diversity and inclusion policies. The administration claimed these DEI programs were actually a form of illegal racial discrimination, calling them a serious violation of the public trust. Okay, so with these really severe accusations on the table, what were the consequences going to be? Well, the executive order laid out a whole series of sweeping directives, all designed to completely cut the firm off from the entire machinery of the U.S. government. And this is where you see just how far-reaching this thing was. We're talking way beyond just ending a contract. Look at this list. Suspend security clearances, block people from being hired, even limit access to federal buildings. It was a top-to-bottom effort to effectively blacklist the entire firm and anyone who worked there. Well, you can probably guess what happened next. An action this aggressive was practically begging for a legal challenge. Perkins Coie immediately filed an emergency lawsuit, which put the core question directly to the courts. Was this a legit use of presidential power, or was it a flagrant violation of the Constitution? In this slide, this really gets to the heart of the legal fight. On one side, the administration was saying, hey, we're just protecting national security and fighting discrimination. But on the other side, the court saw something totally different, an illegal act of punishment against a political opponent. Plain and simple. And things moved fast. I mean, look at this timeline. The order gets signed on March 6th, and by May 2nd, less than 2 months later, a federal judge doesn't just put a pause on it, she strikes it down, permanently. The judge's ruling was just decisive. She found that the order violated not just one, but 3 fundamental constitutional protections. You've got the First Amendment right to free speech, the Fifth Amendment right to due process, which basically means the government can't just take away your liberty or property without a fair legal process, and even the Sixth Amendment right to a lawyer. So how did she reach that conclusion? Well, her reasoning was crystal clear. She pointed to the president's long history of public attacks on the firm, the order's stunning breadth. I mean, it targeted everyone from top partners to administrative assistants, and the fact that the national security argument just didn't hold water. When you put it all together, she said, it was obviously an act of political retaliation. And that's really why this whole case matters so much. It started as a dispute with a single law firm, but it blew up into this landmark test of our constitutional checks and balances. The judiciary basically stepped in and said, whoa, there's a limit to executive power, reinforcing that fundamental idea that in the United States, nobody is above the law. And in the end, Judge Howell's final conclusion left absolutely no room for doubt. She called the order exactly what she believed it was: unconstitutional retaliation for political speech. Plain and simple.
So while the court's ruling put a stop to this specific action, it leaves us with this huge lingering question about the future. In an age of such intense political polarization, this case really stands as a powerful reminder of the constitutional guardrails that exist to stop the immense power of the presidency from being used as a weapon against political opponents.